Hi everyone. I wanted to tell you a story of how I experienced God's grace in high school and how it changed my life forever. So just before I started grade 12, a boy I was seeing dumped me quite suddenly, and I was devastated by this. I was really upset, and I was crying a lot and hoping and praying that he would get back together with me, and I was fixated on this. And one day I was going through my mom's jewelry box, as I did from time to time, because it was a bit of a treasure chest, and I found something in there that I had never seen before. It was a pendant of St. Anne, and I didn't know who St. Anne was, and I asked my mom about it, and she said that she had never seen this pendant in her life. She couldn't remember where it came from. So I decided to take this as a sign from God that St. Anne was going to help me to get through this difficult time in my life. And so I started just talking to St. Anne, and even talking to Jesus in the way I might talk to a friend. And St. Anne, it turns out, is the mother of Mary, so the grandmother of Jesus. So she's this very kind of loving, grandmotherly figure who gave me a lot of comfort at this time. And I really, really felt her presence. I felt like she was listening to me, and I started to feel better really fast. And I started to feel even joyful. And I kind of left this idea that I needed this boy to be with me in order to be happy. And I started to realize that St. Anne loves me and God loves me, and I started to see that my friends and my family love me too, and that I was perfectly lovable the way I was. Then I went on with my life. But the story didn't end there. This kind of started me on a process of more regular prayer and kind of staying close to God, partly through St. Anne, but also through Jesus as well. And then about a month after I found the pendant and I started this more dedicated prayer life, I had a very strange experience in English class. So I was sitting in English class, and there was a boy at the front of my class doing a presentation on communism, of all things. And I didn't care anything about communism, and I didn't care anything about this boy. But I knew this boy. I had met him when I was 12 years old because he was friends with a neighbor on my street. And we didn't particularly like each other at the time, and so we never really spoke, even though we went to the same school for 4 years. And he was very quiet in class, so I barely noticed that he was in my class until this day when he was doing a presentation. But I'm sitting in class, and I'm listening to him talk, just kind of half listening, when all of a sudden I felt this really strong presence around me, and I felt strangely drawn towards him. I felt like I couldn't stop listening to him. And the force was so strong in me that I felt like I had to get closer to him. So in the middle of English class, I stood up and I walked to the nearest empty desk to him, which happened to be his desk, and I sat down and I kept listening to him. And then I looked down at his desk, and it turned out that his English notebook was open to a story he had written, and we had to write random stories or poems to hand in every week. And I knew it was wrong, but I read his story, and it turned out that his story was a romantic story. And I was really blown away by this because I was quite a romantic in high school, and I thought that boys couldn't be romantic. So I put these two things together. One, that this was a romantic boy, and two, that I couldn't stop listening to him and was strangely drawn to him. And I decided right then and there that I was in love with him. Crazy girl that I was. And what's more, I decided that I was going to make him like me. I can't explain it. The feeling just came over me, and I knew that I had to make him like me. So I did crazy things. I started passing him notes in class, and he kind of read my notes but never wrote me back. So I had to try a little harder, and so I started touching his hair in class, and he kind of liked that. That kind of got his attention, but he still never spoke to me. And then it turned out that we were in a second class together. I hadn't noticed him before, again, because he was so quiet, and I had no interest in him before this experience. But we were in law class together, and we had this strange assignment that we had to do a marriage contract with someone in our class, and we had to pick a partner. And so I boldly got up all my courage and asked him if he would do the project with me, and he said yes. And so we had to work on this at home. He came to my house and he was sitting at my kitchen table, and we spent about 2 hours working on this project. And this was really the first time we actually talked, but we got along so great. It turned out that even though he was pretty quiet, he was actually really funny and really interesting. So we just laughed for 2 hours, and we just were connecting so well, and I felt really encouraged that maybe, this was going to work out for me. So we finished the project, and I told him that before he left,